Hello and welcome back to yet another Saturday episode of Bobson Rants while playing Team Fortress 2 badly. Haha. So, what is it I want to talk about this week while I am running around on my demo man fighting random dudes? Let's see. Well, I'm not really sure. I guess I could talk about this week is, how about webcomics? Webcomics is something that's been on my mind this past week, mainly because one of my favorite webcomics recently ended, and I am sad about that, but I can understand why it happened. The comic I'm talking about is Scotty. Scotty the Barbarian. For those of you who don't know what that is or never bothered to read it, it was this comic, web comic about this female barbarian who ran around with her little creature minion thing. I'm not even sure what he was. He was like this bush beast kind of creature that just followed her around everywhere she went. They had these weird little adventures where she fought creatures, fought enemies, and just generally had weird, just had fun with it. It was a fun comic. It updated around once a week. And last week, I think, what was it, last week or the week before? I think it was last week. It finally ended, and yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, it wasn't really this long, arching storyline or anything. It was just kind of these one-of little stories, 2 or 3 comic pages long and stuff like that. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was funny, and I loved it. I look forward to it every week, and I had a lot of fun reading it over the years. But it finally ended. So yeah, and I can understand why. The comic creator, he's the artist or the writer. Is she the artist or the writer? I'm not sure. I think she's both, actually. She used to have a partnership with somebody else who wrote the comic, and she did the art for it, I think. And then she took over both roles later on. I'm not sure. But yeah, she eventually had to give it up because she's also doing this other comic that I really enjoy of hers called Camp We Don't Want Ya. And it's this weird comic about these kids that get dropped off at the summer camp, and they're basically abandoned there by their parents who never come to pick them up. And it's very funny, if a bit surreal and sad, very sad when you really look at the background of what's happening, and with some of the flashbacks and stuff like that some of the campers have. A very dark storyline comes through from the background there. But yeah, it's also a lot of fun, and she just didn't have enough time to keep both comics going, I guess. So she shelved Scotty, finally, after all these years. But yeah, it's sad, but it is fun. It was a fun comic while it lasted. So yeah, I'm not really sure how many people actually read webcomics, or how many people are actually watching this or reading webcomics, but I've always liked some webcomics. Some of them are really good, some of them are really bad. Some people love to read webcomics and web cartoons and stuff like that, and other people just don't care or just don't want to hear about them at all, or they just hate them completely. And it comes back to the whole fandom thing, because another comic that recently ended, I think it was last month, was Homestuck. And Homestuck was one of those webcomics that just, you either loved it or you hated it, and everyone who did love it, because the fandom around that was so, I'm trying to find a word that's not crazy, but yes, the fandom around that webcomic was absolutely insane in some regards. But yeah, it recently ended after, what was it, 7-8 years? It had been going on with massive delays and finally ending it. But yeah, it finally ended, and yeah, people were really disappointed by it. The really rabid fans were either loved the ending or hated the ending absolutely. But yeah, apparently they're coming out with Homestuck 2, or trying to keep going with it with some other medium. I'm not really sure. But yeah, Homestuck was just one of those weird, strange comics that just took off in a really weird direction. I mean, it started off as this adventure game with kids having this RPG kind of game thing. And then it turned into something completely different, where it was just long blocks of dialogue and these weird shipping things that people. That's the whole thing. The entire comic became shipping between various characters. The fans would just try and decide who would be best suited to be in a relationship with each other. And it was weird, it was stupid, and it's one of the reasons people hated Homestuck. It's one of the people hated the fandom of Homestuck because of that kind of stuff. But yeah, that also ended recently, and that's one of the reasons I'm even talking about this now. Is because of comics like that ending after such a long period of time. But yeah, it's odd. It's odd to think these comics that you started reading years ago finally ended. So yeah. Another webcomic I'm currently reading, well, not currently, I'm recording this, but another one I'm reading here recently, I learned about it about a year ago, was Kill 6 Billion Demons. Kill 6 Billion Demons. Again, if you haven't heard of it, go out and read it. Go find it. It has its own website. It is a wonderful comic. It is amazing. I mean, the art on it is very stylized. It's very detailed, and I love the story. It has this huge, expansive universe that they have already built up, and it hasn't even been going incredibly long, but it has a huge mythos surrounding it. And the basic idea is it's this girl who gets dragged into this whole story of. It's kind of like an Alice in Wonderland kind of story where this random woman gets pulled into another world with angels and demons and demigods and corrupt evil kings and queens and stuff like that. And it's very fun to read. It has a very deep and dense storyline behind it, mainly from either the creators as well as the fans around it that have helped build the story around it. And it has just huge chunks of actual story, not just random crap like Homestuck had, but actual story built up around it. And it updates twice a week, and the level of detail in the art is incredible for that kind of update schedule, because normally when you have comics and webcomics like that, it's usually fairly simple, fairly straightforward, very flat kind of comics, especially ones that update regularly. And it's just because it's usually just one or two people doing it, doing the art, doing the writing, doing the coloring and the lining and all that kind of stuff. So they have to make it as simple as possible to get it out there as soon as possible. Because it's not like a professional comics, like something like Marvel or DC, where you have entire teams of people doing that kind of stuff all day long, and that's their entire job. Usually it's just a couple people doing it, and they also have to do other stuff as well. So, yeah. But Kill 6 Billion Demons is one of those comics that I recommend to anyone. If you have ever read a webcomic before, or if you've never read a webcomic before, go read 6 Billion, Kill 6 Billion Demons. It is a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, the game I'm playing right now, Team Fortress 2, has its own webcomic. I mean, it's not like a standard webcomic where it updates like daily or weekly, but it does update in a fairly regular interval, mainly whenever they have a new, like, update or something. And it gives some background story to what the update is about, like the Man Up update or the Halloween updates and stuff like that. They'll put out a comic to go with it, and it gives some background to the characters, it gives some background to the story and the environment, and it's where we mainly learn about where we got the main information from, like Saxton Hale, the Mann brothers, who the characters are behind the mask, behind the guns, the various mercenaries like the Demo Man and the Pyro and stuff like that. And yeah, it's good. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's fairly well done. It's good quality comics and stuff like that. But it doesn't really update all that often, and yeah, it's kind of sad that it doesn't, but yeah, it would be a lot better if it did, because it's a good story and it's a lot of fun. And anyone who likes to play Team Fortress 2 having that background story, having that background information is a lot of fun to have, and seeing all the various stuff around it, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, I just wish it would update a bit more than it does. But unfortunately, it doesn't do that. Only when there's a major update or something. So yeah. Let's see what else. What else? 1 second. Let me check my bookmarks for other comics I read. Also, stuff like Gunner Creek Court, I also enjoy. Uh, JL8. JL8 is this webcomic series. Also, not really its own thing because it's on Facebook. It's on. It has its own series and stuff like that. But it's this weird kind of. Well, it's not really weird. It's kind of a. This guy does this webcomic series, kind of like a newspaper style webcomic strip. And it actually looks like that. It is stylized to look like a newspaper comic strip. And it's basically the Justice League characters, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman and like that, as 8-year-old kids. And they're all friends, they all go to the same school. And it's funny, and it's just sweet little fun comic. And it's just all these characters turned into the little kids and just having little kid adventures as they still have all their powers. They wear their friggin' costumes all the time. Batman, little Bruce Wayne, wearing his Batman costume in school and all over the place is just hilarious. And it's just fun. It's not really dark. It's just lighthearted comedy kind of thing. And I love it. It's fun. And I mentioned Gunner Creek Court, another long-running, story-driven comic. Updates 3 times a week. And it's done in a more comic book style way, where it's entire pages, comic book style pages. And it has a good story. It's done in a book form. And it's easier to read if you, wait a month or so and then come back once an entire book's worth of pages have been done, because it is done as a comic book style. So it's a page after page after page of a comic book, just done released as a webcomic would be. So yeah. But yeah, there's tons of webcomics out there that are a ton of fun, a lot of fun to read, that have great story, great art, and those are just some of the ones I've read over the years. There's tons of others I've read that were just horrible, horrible stuff. Horrible art, bad story. I could mention a few of them, but then I would probably regret doing so if I said they were horrible and anyone was a fan of them. So yeah, I mean, I did kind of say that about Homestuck, but yeah, that is the general consensus of Homestuck. You either love it dearly, or you hate it completely, or you just hate the fandom of it. But yeah, I do have to admit, I did like the creator of Homestuck's previous series, Problem Sleuth. Problem Sleuth was a lot better than Homestuck was, to be perfectly honest. It was the superior series, and it was fairly short compared to Homestuck, and it was a wacky, crazy ride while it was going on, and it began and ended on a very good note. It didn't go too long, it wasn't too short, and it was just a lot of fun to read the entire thing. So yeah, again, if you've never read it, go check that out as well on the MS Paint website. So anyway, I think that's enough. That's enough of me ranting about webcomics for 15 freaking minutes. What the hell? I just spent the last 15 minutes ranting about webcomics. I can't believe I just did that. I don't know. There's nothing else I can really think of to talk about this week. Nothing else really going on. Let's see, anything new on my channel? Nothing really. Last week, more Don't Starve, more Terraria, more Orcs Must Die, and probably the same next week. I'm not really sure what the episodes are going to be, or what they're going to be about, or what I'm going to be doing in them, or what I was doing this past week. But If you are a fan of any of those series, go check them out. If you haven't watched any of them, there should be links to them on the whole pop-up thing that happens in this video, so check that out. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. This has been Bobson. This has been another episode of Bobson Rants about webcomics. And until next time, I will see you later. Bye.